Hi, this is Mrs. Gooding. Welcome to iFlip for Math Mathcast, Lesson 3-3, Estimating Products. Our quote today is, "The only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics." So we're going to do some mathematics tonight. Our learning goal is to use rounding and compatible numbers to estimate products. Our individual lesson learning goals are to estimate by rounding to the greatest place value position and to use compatible numbers to get a closer estimate. We're also going to use mental math again tonight to multiply. Here is our vocabulary. We're looking at the word underestimate, which is when you are rounding both factors to smaller numbers. That's going to give you an answer that's smaller than the actual product. And an overestimate, which is rounding both factors to larger numbers, which gives you an answer that's larger than the actual product. Go ahead and pause to write those down, and then maybe write down some key terms that will help you to remember which is which. Here is an example of estimation using rounding, but let's look at a tip first. The word about is a key word. Anytime you see the word about in a word problem, it tells you to estimate instead of working the exact problem. Here's a word problem. Estimation questions quite often are given in word problems because they're something that happens in real life every day, and we want you to be able to use estimation to do problem solving. Here's our problem. A store needs to take in at least $15,000 in sales per month to make a profit. Can you imagine this happening in the real world? Yeah. If the store is open every day in March and takes in an average of $525 per day, will the store make a profit in March? Let's do this work on our journal. So I wrote the $15,000 at the top to remind me that's how much I need to make per month to make a profit. Then I know that there are 31 days in March, so I wrote that here, times $525 per day. So I'm going to round to estimate. So I'm going to underline the position in the greatest place value that has the greatest place value. So if I round to the tens place, that's going to give me 30. And in this case, I'm going to round to the hundreds place, which gives me 500. Now I use mental math. 3 times 5 is 15. And I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So it looks like I'm going to make the exact amount. Now remember, we just did an estimate. We rounded. Did we round up or down? 31 we rounded down, and 525 we rounded down to 500. So our actual total profit is actually an underestimate, which means that if we multiplied 31 times 525, we would get more than that. So we will make enough to make a profit. Now here's an example of how we use compatible numbers to estimate. It's a little bit different than rounding to the greatest place value position. Let me start off by just reviewing what we do when we actually round to the greatest place value position. If we're estimating the number 3 times 118, that's our basic equation that we're working with right now, our expression. If we round 118 to 100, well, that's pretty easy to work. 3 times 100 equals 300. We know that's an underestimate because we rounded 118 down to 100. Now, when we're estimating using compatible numbers, here's how it looks a little bit different. Instead of rounding 118 down to 100, I'm thinking, 118 is really close to 120. And when I look how I wrote the number 120, I underlined the 12. I can really easily multiply 3 times 12. I know that's 36. So I use my mental math strategy to say 3 times 120 equals 360. Now because I rounded up just a little bit using compatible numbers from 118 to 120, that's giving me an overestimate. But it might be close. Let's see what the actual problem was. Just think about this and guess which will be closer to the actual problem, rounding to the greatest place value position or rounding using compatible numbers. 3 times 118 actually equals 354. Using the compatible numbers gave us a closer estimate. And that's just because we rounded less. There was less difference in the numbers that we were estimating with. Between 118 and 120, that's only 2 numbers different. But between 118 to 100, that's 18 numbers different. So of course, our final estimate's going to be closer with compatible numbers. Let's do some practice. Find an estimate for 286 times 9. Remember, we're not really multiplying this out. We're rounding to the greatest place value or using compatible numbers to find an estimate. Now, it doesn't matter which you do because the idea is that you're using what works best for you to find the closest estimate. Go ahead and pause and try that now. Did you estimate 2,700? The actual answer for 286 times 9 is 2,574. Let's see how we got that estimate. Okay, if we're going to find an estimate for 286 times 9, I'm going to round this to the greatest place value position. So that's 5 or more, so I have to add 1. That gives me 300. Now, I could round 9 up to 10, but I really don't need to because 9 times 3 is 27. That's really easy for me to multiply. And if I leave my 9 the same, my estimate will be closer to the actual product. So I'll use my mental math. 3 times 9 is 27. Add my 2 zeros. 2,700. Now we talked about the actual answer being 2,574. If I had rounded this up to 10, my estimate would have been 3,000. That would have been even further from the actual estimate, the actual product, excuse me. So think about that. Just put some thought into your rounding. You want to try to get as close as you can. Now find an estimate for 11 times 83. There was 2 ways of solving this one. Did you estimate 800 or 830? The actual answer is 913. So one of those gives us a much closer estimate. Let's take a look at both of the ways we could have solved that one. Okay, in 11 times 83, we can always round to the greatest place value position. So in this case, if I'm rounding, I round to 10. And for 83, I would round down to 80. Using my mental math, 1 times 8 is 8. 1, 2 zeros. That gives me 800. Okay. I could also use compatible numbers because if I round 11 to 10, I can multiply 10 times 83 really easily. It gives me 830 because 1 times 83 is 83, and then I add my 0. Oops, my 8's a little sloppy there. Now, the actual answer was 913, so this way was actually a closer estimate than was using just rounding to the greatest place value position. The closer you can get to keeping the numbers the same, the closer you're going to get to your actual product. Now find an estimate for 26 times 3 times 101. Work it out, pause it, and start it again when you're ready. Did you estimate 7,500? The actual answer is 7,878. Let's see how we worked that one. This one looks more complex because there are 3 numbers, but just go step by step and it will be easy for you. First, we can round 26 up to 30. If you need to go through the exact rounding process, that's okay. That's why we taught you the strategies. Go ahead and do that. Since we've already had a lesson on that, I'm just kind of doing it in my head. Now, the 3, we're just going to leave the same. And the 101, we're going to round to 100. Now, I'm going to use my associative property to group these first. So I'm going to multiply 30 times 3, which equals 3 times 3 is 9, and I have 1 0. So now I have 90. Remember, I'm crossing that out just so I don't get it mixed up. And I'll bring the rest of the symbols down. So 90 times 100. Again, my mental math strategies. 9 times 1 is 9. And I have 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3 zeros. And there's my comma. See, it was easy when we took it step by step. It's time to challenge yourself. Tickets to see Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez in concert cost $29 each. The greatest number of tickets that one person can buy is 9 tickets. If 28 people each buy 9 tickets for $29 each, about what is the total cost of all the tickets? Is your estimate an overestimate or an underestimate of the actual cost? Could you get closer to the actual cost by using a compatible number in your estimate? Explain your answer in your journal. Doesn't it feel good to challenge yourself and make that brain work? It's exciting. Check your work at school tomorrow. Finishing up, review your learning goals. Have you mastered all of them? Do you need more practice at this? It's okay if you do. We have time at school tomorrow to practice, and we want to make sure you get all of the practice you need at the different skills. Write down if you think you're still at a 1, if you've made it to a 2, or maybe you've got it and you're a 3. Either way, it's okay. It's just important to be able to assess your learning so you know how to help yourself learn more. Go ahead and write down any questions you still have. You've completed Lesson 3-3, Estimating Products. See you tomorrow.